Welcome to another Mathologer video. Today we'll do the impossible. We'll build the 4D counterpart of the Rubik's Cube out of plastic, right here in our physical 3D world. We'll scramble it and we'll solve it with our 3D hands. We'll also confront a few classic Rubik's Cube conundrums, proven to be impossible in 3 dimensions, but solvable in 4. And then, strangely enough, also in 3. Lots to look forward to. Before tackling the 4D Rubik's Cube, let me start by reminding you what a 4D cube is mathematically. Not a 4D Rubik's Cube, but just a 4D cube. The best way to approach this elusive object is via the cubes in dimensions 1, 2 and 3. Okay, in what sense is a square a 2D cube and an interval a 1D cube? Well, in the sense that they can be built in exactly the same way as a 3D cube. To see this, let's add coordinates. Then, as you can see, the vertices of these cubes are exactly those points in 1D, 2D and 3D that are all 1s and minus 1s. Okay, so what about 4D? Well, obviously, the vertices of the 4D counterpart should be the 4D points with these x, y, z and w plus minus 1 coordinates. Next, we flesh out the full cube, edges, faces and sides, also all in terms of coordinates. And once we're done with that, it's possible to virtually manipulate a 4D cube as easily as a 3D cube. For example, it's very easy to code this iconic 4D shadow play animation. You've probably seen something like that before, right? Okay, sounds tricky, but really not a big deal. Having said that, for our purposes, all this mucking around with coordinates is a bit of overkill, as it's actually very easy to develop all the intuition we need by playing the popular primary school game of 1, 2, 3, what comes next? Let me show you. Let's try to guess how many sides a 4D cube has and what these sides look like. Okay, a 3D cube has 6 square sides. In other words, a 3D cube has 6 2D cube sides, right? A square is just a 2D cube. Next, a 2D cube has 4 1D cube sides. And a 1D cube has 2 0D cube sides. A 0D cube is just a point. And so 2, 4, 6, what comes next? 2, 4, 6, 8 of course. 8 of what? 8 3D cube sides of course. Great. Now how about this? In a normal cube there are 3 sides meeting in a vertex. In a 2D cube there are 2 sides meeting in a vertex and 1. 1, 2, 3, what comes next? 1, 2, 3, 4 of course. What does all this tell us about a 4D Rubik's Cube? Well, in 3D we've got 6 sides and therefore also 6 colors. And so in 4D there should be 8 sides and 8 colors, right? Also, anything that's a square in a Rubik's Cube should be a 3D cube in 4D. For example, all sides and stickers of a 4D Rubik's Cube should be 3D cubes. There, on the right, that's the red cubical side of the 4D Rubik's Cube, consisting of a bunch of cubical stickers. Pretty weird, but also makes sense, right? What about the 3 and the 4 at the bottom? Well, a normal Rubik's Cube has 3 square stickers per cubie, and so we expect every single one of the cubies of a 4D Rubik's Cube to have 4 cubical stickers. All clear? No? Not at all? Don't worry, these 4D acrobatics take a bit to get used to, but by the end of this video, you'll be an expert. For the moment, just go with the flow. Looking at lower dimensions is great for building intuition for higher dimensions. Now, today's mission is to build a 4D Rubik's Cube in 3D, a physical 4D Rubik's Cube that you can actually hold in your hands and twist right here in the 3D world we live in. Very important, I'm talking about a physical object, not just a virtual simulator. And so let's start by warming up with the same task, 1 dimension down. Let's start by building that normal 3D Rubik's Cube over there in 2D. 3D in 2D, that still sounds impossible, doesn't it? Well, the important insight here is that a normal Rubik's Cube is not that 3D puzzle. It's really a 2D puzzle wrapped around a 3D shape, right? The real Rubik's Cube is really all about those 2D stickers, how they get shuffled around, and in this sense is a flat 2D puzzle. And so what we'll do is to simply unfold this 2D puzzle and make it flat. There, split it into its front and back layers and flatten out both layers. Ta-da! We just rebuilt our real Rubik's Cube in 2D. Its cubies are trefoils consisting of 3 square stickers each, just like in the real deal. Also, as in the real deal, there are 8 of these trefoil cubies. What are the 6 sides of the Rubik's Cube? Well, here's side number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, let's just reorient our cube in space like this. This reorientation translates into this shuffle of the flat Rubik's Cube. Okay, right, the front layer of our 3D cube is now exactly what you see on the left. And the back layer is what you see on the right. Turn again. This way of shuffling the flat cube is called a gyro rotation, or simply a gyro. Here's a different sort of rotation of the 3D 2x2x2, a front rotation. In the flat cube, this corresponds to simultaneous rotations of the left and right sides. Again, again, now gyro. Okay, so far we've really just rotated the 2x2x2 in space. Now let's twist the front layer. That's just the quarter rotation of the left half of the flat cube. Now, very important, we can completely shuffle and solve the 2x2x2 by restricting ourselves to rotating the cube in space and twisting the front layer as we just did, right? A twist of any layer can also be achieved by first rotating that layer to the front and then twisting the front. For example, to twist the right layer, we can first rotate it to the front and then twist the front. There, you can restrict yourself to twisting the front to scramble and solve. What this means is that our flat cube at the bottom, together with gyros and those simultaneous rotations to reorient, as well as rotations of the left side to twist the front face, is a minimalistic yet fully functional 2D version of the 3D Rubik's Cube. Just 3 moves. Fantastic. Mission accomplished. Of course, for a richer cubing experience, we may want to figure out what those twists of the other faces correspond to in the flat cube. For example, let's figure out what twisting the top translates to. Here we go. Aha! That's just a gyro restricted to the top part of our flat puzzle. So if you want, you can also add this half gyro to your repertoire of flat Rubik's Cube moves. Well, all this is supposed to be a warm-up for our real mission, to build a 3D model of a 4D Rubik's Cube, an object which we, as 3D people, cannot see and touch directly. And so let's make our warm-up a little bit more realistic by looking at all this from the point of view of a 2D person who cannot see the 3D cube. So, say you are this 2D person who's been given the minimalistic flat cube on the left to play with and explore. How would you figure out what twisting the top face currently occupied by the green stickers looks like? Well, easy. You first reorient the flat cube so that the green stickers become the front face, then perform a twist of the front face, and then finish off by undoing the reorientation we started with. Here we go. First, move the green stickers. Okay. Twist the front. Now rotate the greens back to the top. And of course, that's exactly the same as what we got by performing that half gyro. In this way, we can figure out completely within the 2D world what those other twists correspond to, and we can add the half gyro and those other twisty moves to our repertoire. And so, we are now ready to tackle the 4D Rubik's Cube. Okay, what's the 3D analog of our flat cube? That's what we are after, right? Easy. Our flat cube is made up of these trefoil cubies consisting of 3 square stickers each. The corresponding 3D counterpart looks like this. 4 cubical stickers combined into a cubie. And then this is what the complete unfolded 4D 2x2x2x2 looks like. Wow, it's a hedgehog. Also, remember, the 4D Rubik's Cube has 8 cubical sides of different colors made up of cubical stickers. Here's side number 1. The red cubical side made up of 8 red cubical stickers. That's the orange side opposite the red. Here's the white side. Well, looks gray, but it's supposed to be white. Here's the yellow side opposite the white, the green side, and opposite the green side, the blue side. That's 6 sides so far, but there are 2 more. There's also the pink side, and opposite that, the purple side. Just looking out there in the back. Very pretty. And important to keep in mind, the 3D model at the bottom arises from the real 4D Rubik's Cube in exactly the same way as the flat model at the top arises from the normal 2x2x2. In particular, the left and right sides of our model correspond to two opposite layers of the 4D Rubik's Cube. Okay, what about reorienting things at the bottom, rotating the 4D Rubik's Cube? Well, what's the counterpart of the gyro? What did that look like again at the top? Well, let me show you again, but this time pay particular attention to the sides in the middle, yellow, red, white and orange. A gyro cycles these sides to the left and leaves the top and bottom sides, the green and the blue, in place. Ready? Watch. Okay. Now at the bottom, exactly the same. The gyro cycles the four sides along the middle axis to the left and leaves the outside sides pink, purple, green and blue in place. Watch as, for example, the orange stickers move left. This animation took ages to do. Now, as earlier, the other non-gyro ways of reorienting the 4D Rubik's Cube are realized by simultaneous opposing rotations of the two sides of our 3D model. However, instead of just one such rotation in the 2D model, there are three different ones in the 3D model. Here's the first, here's the second, and the third. So four different ways to reorient the 4D Rubik's Cube, these three, and the gyro. Now, what about twists, say of the left side? That's one layer of the 4D Rubik's Cube, right? Easy. Those are just these 3D rotations of the layer on the left. Okay, here's an interesting insight. When I keep twisting a layer in a normal Rubik's Cube, I get back to the beginning after doing so 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? In other words, there are 4 different ways to align opposite layers. Using combinations of the 3 different twists over there, in how many different ways can we align the 2 layers over there? Well, let's count. With the pink stickers in front, there are 4 ways of aligning. We're looking at 1, then 2, 3, 4, but then we can twist any of the 6 outside colors on the left to the front, and we will get 4 alignments for each color. And so that gives a total number of 6 times 4 equals 24 alignments of the 2 layers. In other words, they're not just those 3 twists over there, there are really 24 ways to twist a layer in a 4D Rubik's Cube. And that includes the do nothing twist. That's quite a bit up from 4 in the case of a 3D Rubik's Cube. In practice, this means that to twist one of those 2 layers over there, just pick it up, spin it around in space any way you like, and then put it back next to the other layer. Okay, and so this hedgehog, together with the different reorientation moves and all these twists of the left layer, amount to a minimalistic, fully functioning 4D Rubik's Cube right here in our 3D world. Fantastic again. I actually built myself a real-life model using plastic magnet cubes and 3D printed connectors. Looks professional, doesn't it? Well, how easy is it to actually manipulate this thing? Ready for a bit of a laugh? Here's me performing the gyro. Okay, definitely a gyro, but maybe still a tiny little bit too clunky, isn't it? Well, don't worry. Eventually we'll refine this prototype into a speed cube that looks like this. This thing handles like a Ferrari. But before we build and test drive the Ferrari, let's first extend our minimalistic moveset by a couple of slick moves and come up with a super intuitive way of solving the 4D Rubik's Cube. Remember our flat cube and how, without direct access to the 3D Rubik's Cube, we figured out how twists of sides other than the 2 right in front of us can be executed within the flat cube. No? Well, then here's a quick reminder, using an example, just in case. Let's figure out what the twist of the side currently occupied by the orange stickers looks like. For that, just reorient the flat cube so that the orange stickers occupy the front face. Remember now? Twist the front, and finally reorient the orange stickers back to the middle. Okay, so we all remember now, right? And then on closer inspection, what's happened here is the whole center part of our flat cube got rotated like this. Okay, now we can do the same with our 3D model of the 4D Rubik's Cube. I'll skip the details and just show you two particularly natural and useful moves that correspond to twists of other sides that emerge from a detailed analysis. Move number one is the 180-degree twist. So the 180-degree twist just swaps the two tops. Now the second very natural move that we discover is the axial twist that rotates the middle part of our cube. Okay, here's the axial twist one more time. With this axial twist, we are heading towards a major aha moment. To get ready for this, let's reorient our cube such that the cores of the two sides are purple and pink. Just a rotation and a gyro gets us there. There. In this reorientation of our Rubik's Cube, the stickers with the original 6 Rubik's Cube colors are on the outside and the pink and purple stickers occupy the cores. Now, just step back for a moment and have a close look at the left side. Does this remind you of something? Should be obvious. Can you see it? No? Yes? Doesn't this look very much like a real 2x2x2? Actually, if we don't worry about the cores of the two sides of our physical 4D Rubik's Cube for the moment, what we're looking at here are two 2x2x2s. One the mirror image of the other. Now, what's really great is that you can scramble and solve one of these 2x2x2s using axial twists. You see, an axial twist just gives the left 2x2x2 a twist. But then to actually completely scramble this 2x2x2, we just repeatedly reorient it in space and perform axial twists. Can you see how? No? Should sound familiar. We already did something like this earlier. Anyway, have a look. So again, what I'm doing here is perform two types of twists of the 4D Rubik's Cube. I reorient the cube on the left. That's just twisting the left layer of our 4D Rubik's Cube. And then I also perform this other special twist, the axial twist. Now the left is nicely scrambled, but did you notice something else? Have a look at the right side. On the right side, not much has changed as we've just twisted one layer back and forth. That layer there, let's call this special layer the buffer layer. Okay, can you see where I'm going with this? Not yet? Well then, imagine those two cubes in front of you are completely scrambled. They're completely scrambled. Also, let's say you know how to solve a real 2x2x2, okay? Then you can solve the left cube completely using axial twists. At this point, the right cube is still a mess. Now, switch from fiddling with the cube on the left to solving the right cube. Once you're done, both cubes are essentially solved, except that one buffer layer on the left may be twisted a bit, maybe like this. Anyway, takeaway message at this point. If you can solve a normal Rubik's Cube, this will take you a long way towards being able to solve our physical 4D Rubik's Cube. In the next section, I'll show how to combine everything we found so far into a general solution of our physical 4D Rubik's Cube. But before I do this, here's a shortcut that I use when I actually manipulate my plastic model. As you can see from me performing the gyro, simultaneously manipulating both sides of the puzzle is quite a challenge. However, the whole buffer business suggests the following trick. Say I want to manipulate the left side using a fancy 2x2x2 algorithm. What I do is simply execute the algorithm on the left and ignore actually spinning the buffer layer on the right to start with. However, to keep track of the back and forth movement of the buffer, I keep a running count of twists. Starting in 0, a clockwise twist adds 1 and an anti-clockwise twist adds -1, corresponding to the buffer's rotation direction. Whenever the count reaches 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning the buffer has completed a full revolution, the count resets to 0. Only after I've finished the algorithm do I transfer the required twist to the buffer on the right. Here's a quick demo. I really need stronger magnets. Okay, so real Rubik's Cubes it is. Let me demonstrate this counting business while fixing up the top layer of the cube on the left. All right, the count is 0 to start with, so we want to do a twist like this. That's a -1. And so the count is -1. Now, -2, -3, minus 4, that's a 0. And this is a positive twist, so plus 1. And so the count is plus 1. You can transfer this plus 1 over to the buffer by going like this. But actually, in this case, we don't really have to transfer anything because there's room to do some nothing move on the left, which is this minus 1 here. This minus 1 also cancels out the 1, and so the count would also be 0 here, and we're okay again. Very cool, don't you think? Okay, here's a completely scrambled 4D Rubik's Cube. We want to solve it so that in the end it looks like this. In particular, we want the pink and purple stickers to occupy the cores on the left and right. Any other pair of opposite colors in the cores would also be okay, but let's go for pink and purple. Before we start solving, let me point out that every cubie has either a purple or a pink sticker, right? Completely obvious in this solved state. Look at any of the cubies. One of its stickers is a core sticker and as such pink or purple. Since both sides are made up of 8 cubies each, this means that at all times there are 8 purple or pink stickers on each side, and that there are 16 purple and pink stickers altogether. Next, let me highlight 16 special positions, those ones here. What's special about these positions? Well, remember, if you execute a gyro, all the stickers on the middle axis cycle left. Well, half of that middle axis is the special positions, the other half is the cores. And what a gyro does is to swap what's in the cores with what's in the special positions. All clear? A gyro swaps what's in the cores with what's in the special positions. Great. Okay, then the first step in solving our puzzle is to use normal Rubik's Cube moves to fill all the special positions with stickers that are not purple or pink. Easy peasy, promise. There, no purple or pink. Then we make a gyro and this swaps these non-purple pink stickers into the cores. In other words, we can now be sure that all 16 purple and pink stickers are on the outsides. Then we use normal Rubik's Cube moves to put all the 16 purple and pink stickers in the 16 special positions. Again, easy peasy. Another gyro and the purple and pink stickers now fill the cores. Fantastic. Definitely making progress. Now important, the cores on the left and right are like mini 2x2x2s. And as long as we don't worry about what happens to the outside stickers, we can manipulate the cores with normal Rubik's Cube moves and those fancy 180-degree twists in exactly the same way as we would manipulate the outsides, counting and all. In fact, it's a piece of cake to separate the purple and pink stickers in this way. Here's a bit of a demo in which I focus on manipulating the cores. Okay, count is 0, 1, 2, some more nothing moves, 3, 4, count is 0. Okay, other side. I want to swap those 2 cubes there, cubicle stickers. I do this with a Rubik's Cube algorithm that has a count of -1. Compensate by 1, overall count 0. Put them together, do one of those 180-degree twists, and done. The only thing left to do is to solve the outsides, again with normal Rubik's Cube moves. And that's it. So there are 4 stages to the general solve. Move all the purple and pink stickers to the outsides. From there, move them to the cores, then separate the purples and pinks, and finally solve the outsides. All not terribly hard. And basically, if you can solve a normal Rubik's Cube, you are also 90% there as far as its 4D counterpart is concerned. All good, except that there are a few intriguing problems that you may have to overcome along the way. First problem, remember how I told you to solve the outsides with Rubik's Cube moves? Again, first completely solve one 2x2x2, then solve the other. Once you're done with both 2x2x2s and your count is 0, you're really done. However, what can also happen is that your count is 2. In other words, at this stage you would have to transfer a half turn to the other solved side. And something like this is what you really end up with, an extra half turn. Bummer. On closer inspection, it's possible to overcome this problem using one of the standard Rubik's Cube algorithms that exchanges adjacent cubies. By applying this algorithm 4 times to the cubies on the top right, as indicated over there, cancels out the extra half turn. Also, this combo algorithm happens to have a count of 0, and so by the end of it, the outsides are really completely solved. I just remarked that you cannot end with an odd count. If you do, you messed up somewhere. Okay, problem number 2. You can end up with a twisted corner. As any Rubik's Cube enthusiast will tell you, this is not possible in any real Rubik's Cube. However, it turns out that corner twists like this never occur in isolation. They always come in pairs. This sort of problem can be solved by using a 180-degree twist to move both twisted cubies into the same half, and then resolving these two twists in the usual 2x2 ways. This usual way happens to have a count of 0. Final problem, the mysterious monoflip. This kind of strange and very interesting flip of just one cubie in isolation is possible. The monoflip exchanges the positions of two pairs of stickers, as I've indicated up there. Takes a bit of soul searching to sort this one out, but in the end you realize that this is just another incarnation of problem 2, where the two cubie twists end up superimposed like this, right? Performing those two indicated twists also produces a monoflip. You might run into these issues partway through a solve, not just at the very end, but there's nothing a bit of common sense can't handle. Okay, this amazing physical 4D Rubik's Cube was invented by Melinda Green 8 years ago, and you can purchase a super fun do-it-yourself kit or a fully assembled puzzle from Melinda. Details in the description of this video. This piece of higher dimensional art is powered by a staggering 384 neodymium magnets and is an absolute must-have for any serious twisty puzzle enthusiast. Fun fact, Melinda told me that the idea of using magnets had been there from the start, but after exhausting all other options, it was an early mythology video about magnet-based Rubik's Cubes and polarity chasing that finally showed her how to make it work. Okay, but what exactly is the relationship between Melinda's puzzle and the hedgehog? Well, let's see. In the hedgehog, a cubie consists of 4 cubes colored differently. In Melinda's cube, the corresponding cubie is a single 4-colored cube. 4-colored how? Well, this is how. Inscribe a tetrahedron into a cube, paint its 4 sides, and then paint the corners of the cube sitting above these sides with the same colors. Obviously, a cubie like this is a lot more compact than our calthrope-looking cubie at the top. To motivate compacting the top into the bottom, let's first do this one dimension down. What do you think of this way of compacting the flat cube? Can't decide? Well, let's see it in action. All right. Very nice, don't you think? Let's have a closer look at how this compacting is done. Okay, first we highlight these triangular corners of the trefoil cubie. Then we simply slide them together. Now the whole thing. Okay, let's do the same one dimension up. Highlight the corners and slide them together. That's already quite compact, but we can do better. For this, remove the purple corner and fold the remaining corners together like this. Finish by reinserting the purple corner. Now, let's apply this transformation to the whole hedgehog. Isolate the corners, slide them together, remove the purple and pink core stickers for the moment, fold things together and reattach the purple and pink stickers on the outside. Not bad, huh? Now, the hedgehog on top is really just an unfolded 4D Rubik's Cube, and as such, it is closer to the real deal than Melinda's puzzle. However, Melinda's puzzle is much more playable. As a physical puzzle, Melinda's cube behaves almost the same as the hedgehog. However, there are some important differences. In particular, the core stickers in the hedgehog end up on the outside of Melinda's cube. This is actually great for visibility, however also slightly complicates moves that transport stickers between the cores and the outsides of the hedgehog. For example, the gyro is no longer a simple cycle left action because on top of the cycling action, the gyro in Melinda's cube also needs to incorporate some inside-out magic. People use a couple of different ways to execute this gyro. There is no default natural one. Here's Melinda's original clamshell gyro. This is also the one that I use. So Melinda's gyro starts with this short stacking move, then there's the long stacking move, and finally 3 of these very nifty clamshell moves. All right, here's the before and after. Note that on top of the differences that I already mentioned, this gyro also moves stickers a bit differently from the one we used for the hedgehog. If you eventually end up using it, you'll need to make a small adjustment to the solving method I described earlier. Anyway, here are a few basic twists. Okay, spin the left side, that's just a twist of the 40 Rubik's Cube. Another twist, another. Now one of those fancy 180-degree twists. Let's see, here we go. Okay, another one. And here's an axial twist. Okay, let's just do a couple more. 2, 3, 4, back to the beginning. Some people also execute the axial twist like this, avoids that fancy finger acrobatics to immobilize the far left and right of the puzzle. All right, let me just mention that Melinda's puzzles have stealthily infiltrated every corner of the globe. Well over 1,000 are out there in the wild. In fact, I've captured 6 myself. There's even a Hall of Fame on Melinda's website honoring the roughly 100 officially confirmed solves. Melinda's challenge to you, earn your exclusive spot in that Hall of Fame. My challenge to all of you coding wizards, create a fully animated online simulator of the hedgehog. The prize for the best submission that ticks all the boxes will be one of Melinda's puzzles. And I'll announce the winner in the next video. Okay, so you think this was all too easy. Well then, 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, what comes next? Well, what about this monster, the physical 3 by 3 by 3 by 3? Well, maybe not. Well, there is a virtual version that you should check out for an unforgettable experience. Wow, totally insane. Actually, if you're interested in solving the 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 and lots of other higher dimensional twisty puzzles, check out the amazing classic app Magic Cube 4D, also by Melinda and friends. That's the 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 being solved in this app. Actually, surprisingly doable, mainly due to the built-in macro feature that allows you to program your own algorithms and use them in solving the puzzle. Our 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 looks like this in Magic Cube 4D. The hedgehog and its Magic Cube 4D counterpart are closely related. Have a look. One half of the hedgehog is this inner part, and the rest is the outside of the other half. The core of the other half is not visible in Magic Cube 4D. Magic Cube 4D features over 100 different 4-dimensional twisty puzzles. Here are just a few examples. I already did a video on solving the 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 in Magic Cube 4D early on in the history of Mythology. Definitely also check out that video. But that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as simulators are concerned. Guess what Magic Cube 5D and Magic Cube 7D do? That's enough for today. I'll finish with a big thank you to Melinda for all her help with this video. There's plenty more in the description if you'd like to explore further. And at the very end of this video, I've included a little gallery of the nicest visuals that didn't make the main cut. So stick around for that. All right, that's it for now. See you next time.